Hello, welcome to my diary. I'm Tatami, and here we talk about whatever I want to. And today we're going to talk about one of my passions, which is Montessori, and essentially discuss a few of the biggest red flags that I know of for when you're looking for a Montessori to send your child to, or even to work at your for yourself as like somebody new, perhaps. These are some of the red flags that I look for as somebody who has worked at Montessori schools in my early 20s to mid 20s, and also was raised pretty much at my mother's Montessori school until I was probably like 16 years old. I used to work there and volunteer there and just be around there for many, many years. My summers were spent there. So I'm just pretty familiar with how they should be run as opposed to how people run them. So I'm sure somebody off the bat is curious as to why there would be fake Montessori schools, why you would need to be able to differentiate between the two of them. And that is quickly explained by the fact that Maria Montessori was a wonderful person who was very much ahead of her time and invented a method of teaching that could be spread worldwide, and it didn't matter your class, how much money you have, your culture, your race, what you all did. Her method, her pedagogy should be able to be transformed slightly to be able to fit into any culture, any type of people in the world. So because she was ahead of her time, she obviously left this open. If she had put up some type of license or requirement for people to go do some type of specific schooling at specific locations, get specific degrees, it would have cut off a huge portion of the world, and that's not what she was interested in. She was interested in, especially impoverished children, being able to have access to excellent education. So with that in mind, anybody can use the name Montessori. If they are willing to pay money to put the word Montessori on a sign, they can automatically start to reap benefits of being associated with Montessori, even if they are mildly inspired. Very mildly. So, this puts people in a predicament, right? Because you want to get this amazing form of education that has been proven countless times, that has hundreds of thousands of people behind it, that has been built upon as time has gone on, long past Maria Montessori's life. People, great teachers, have been building on this whole thing. And so you really want to try and find the best that you can find and not get yourself caught up in basically people trying to scam to make money is essentially what it is. Like, I'm not saying everybody's a bad person. If you have a school and you love children, blah, 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 you're wonderful, but are you Montessori? You know what I mean? This means something to people, and it actually means something in general, but it means something to people specifically to be able to access this specific type of education, to be able to access this specific method. The Montessori method, it's important. So if you say, it says Montessori, and then you show up and you can look at a few things and realize this is a waste of my time, you can save yourself, your kids, a lot of trauma, because you're going to be able to realize what is and isn't correct. And I want to note too that sometimes not every Montessori is perfect, right? There may be one or two things that you're able to dismiss, let go, because this is the best you can find in your area, and maybe drop suggestions, but overall it could be a really great Montessori and still have like one or two strange hiccups that are perhaps not necessarily Montessori but culturally appropriate. Who knows? So how to find a ding-dong Montessori. I'm not sure who I first heard use that term. I've been hearing it practically my whole life. My mom used to teach other Montessori teachers how to be teachers, and she would take me with her to those trips to San Leandro as well. So I've been hearing these terms my whole life. I'm not sure when I've always known what a ding-dong Montessori is, okay? And I'm sure you knew the second I said it what it was too. So my first on my list is an obvious one. This should probably go for any daycare that you've ever been to, but everything should be looking like it's built for the child. The work on the shelves should look like something a child could go take by themselves and go do. The shelves should be obviously short enough. every area, everything that you see should be built for a child to do it themselves. So the child should be able to access things are lowered, everything. There is times, this is why I'm saying there are some times where you can't have it all perfect. For example, let's say somebody moved into a building and they are incapable of getting tiny little toilets, right? But they have like a stepping stool and a little thing in the big toilet, so you know that this is for children. Children can do this by themselves. You know what I'm saying? So it's not all going to be like perfect little miniature sinks everywhere, because that's pretty expensive, and Montessori is not necessarily about spending the most money and doing the fucking most, even though it's very beautiful and aesthetically pleasing a lot of the time. But you overall, you want, you want it to be as aesthetically pleasing as possible given the circumstances. So if you're at a little home Montessori, chances that every single shelf is going to be the same color and perfectly aesthetically pleasing wood, everything is probably slim. You're probably going to see like some variations, a little more color. There's going to be slight more chaos to it, but it's still going to be very cohesive is what you're looking for. You're going to be looking for, this stuff is accessible to children. This stuff is pleasing to the eye. It's not ugly. A Montessori classroom can be pretty plain sometimes, but never ugly. It should never be just drab, droll. Doesn't look like anybody's putting in any effort to change the decor. In fact, I sometimes suggest people just try and visit twice if you can. 2 different months. See if they change that decor. See if anything changes, or if it looks really bright and fun, and then you come in a year later when your kid's 3 now and you're like, oh my gosh, y'all still have that same bright rainbow on the fucking wall. And and now that I'm looking at it, it does kind of look like it's peeling. Maybe you've had that for 2 years. Who knows? So, having this bright, comforting space that looks like it's upkept is your number one thing. That looks like it's for children and is upkept. My second, I think my kids are arguing, but I'll give them a moment to figure it out. Art on the walls. This is a big one. So, technically with Montessori, you should not have every kid did the exact same artwork and it's lined up on the wall. You've seen that before at a daycare. It looks like every kid sat down at the exact same time, did the exact same project, or maybe they did it back to back to back like a little, a factory, pumped them out one after the other after the other. If it looks like that's what they're doing with their artwork and it's all up on the wall and every kid looks like they have to do the same art project, that is not Montessori. Your child should be able to go and do that same weird glue the puffballs on the cloud project as many times as you want. You should be able to get that same project in your kid's thing 100 times if that is what your kid wanted to do. There should not be just this one time, this one project that your kid one time did and brought it home after it was on the wall for a couple months. I've worked at a place with a Montessori on the wall, and that was something that it was something that other teachers couldn't fathom, was the idea that a kid might reject an art project that just didn't appeal to them, or the fact that a kid may want to do that project over and over and over and over again. But this was a Montessori school. I'm just saying, I worked there, and other teachers were like, I had a teacher flip out because a kid said, no thank you. He didn't want to make this dumb dog we were making. He didn't want that dog in his life. And I said, oh, okay. He rejected me. He was very polite. You could see it in his eyes that he was kind of like, I just don't want that thing. I just don't want it. Other kids, when they see a project, their eyes, they get a glow. But sometimes your eyes don't get a glow. Sometimes you really just don't want to do that lacing project, that glue these items together project, that put those things and match them together project. You just don't want it. So that choice, that ability to choose if I wanted to do that project and how many times I did it, is a huge red flag. If you go in and it looks like every kid in the class was forced to do this project and had it up on the wall, it's not right. But there is times where some people do display projects, which shouldn't be Montessori. It shouldn't, because then it invites comparisons. It really just does. Your kid's project is up there with another kid's, and then people start comparing. It just is a natural thing that happens. So it's not Montessori, but some people do let you put up each and every one of your crazy projects on the wall, and you can have 6 that are by the same kid and 3 that are by another kid, 1 by another kid. That's a little more Montessori. Maybe you could let it slide, but I'm just letting you know the concept of putting projects up on the wall is it's just not Montessori, because it's not something you made for the kid to be looking at or to enjoy. It's not a poster or something. It's literally a comparison, basically, of everybody's artwork. Some people really love it. It's a kind of a tradition, I think, at schools to do so, but I don't think it's I don't think it's the right thing to be doing. So, and it's not the right thing to be doing for Montessori, should I say. I don't think it's right overall because the comparisons really make me wary. But Montessori wise, it's a definite no. So that's 2. Number 3, be wary of a school that only does Montessori for blank. That could be, we only do Montessori in the morning. We only do Montessori for 1.5 hours, for 1 hour every morning. That's it. We only do Montessori at opening time. We only use the jobs here. We only do the jobs here. In fact, we don't usually use the jobs. The jobs are for this specific thing at the specific thing. If they're wary about the kids using the work on the shelves that they're supposed to be using to build their brains and figure out what's going on, something's wrong here. That's not a Montessori. The work on the shelves should be available in the morning and the afternoon for best results. And further, but you can get some places where they do like a really long morning session and then they do like daycare in the afternoon. And I've seen kids do well in those situations, but I always have to ask myself as a true Montessorian, what could it have been if you'd given those kids the opportunity to do this in the afternoon as well? If you weren't just so stickler with the idea of them doing the work in the afternoons, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's laziness because there are less kids, if they just fear they'll be more tired, if they think it will just be more work. I don't know what the aversion is to people having afternoon circle up. One of my first jobs, afternoon job time. One of my first jobs, I absolutely had to argue for it and try and advocate and to show, like, and I was younger back then. I was like 20-ish, 23. So I had a lot more energy and I was really willing to put in that energy to pretend I wasn't tired at the end of the day just so the kids could get some work. Because it's funny that they never want to give this extra job time, but guys, once it comes to the kids 4.5, all of a sudden they want you to drill. We need results. Why can't the kids read? Why can't the kids do this? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because you didn't do enough work time. The kids didn't have enough time to become comfortable with this stuff. They see it as like a thing that they only rarely have access to, so they can only do certain things instead of a classroom that's completely at their access. And what will I explore today? What will I get into today? And, function at a higher level because they're not worried that they only have 30 flipping minutes to get the job that they're trying to get. You know what I'm saying? A kid knows, they know if they're being time constrained. And so if you give them all that time, then they're willing to work at those like harder things that you wouldn't expect them to work at originally. So that is a huge thing. Is it a half day Montessori? Is it a 2-hour Montessori? Is it a 1 hour Montessori? Some of these people out here put up all that that shelf is for show. It's for show, and their kids barely touch it, and it's tragic. And then they have a room in the back, a closet in the back, and they will bring out little daycare toys. They'll bring out the Care Bears, the little ponies, the train tracks, all the shit you have at home. They will bring that out, and it's just not okay. Ask them if it's a half day because you're paying for a Montessori school. Often these people will upcharge because they're using the name Montessori. If you're going to be paying that extra, get what you're owed. Get what you're owed, okay? So that was 3. We're going on to my number 4. Whew. It's the jobs. It's back to the jobs. The jobs on the shelf are a big red flag. This part is super important. I want you to focus, okay? There are a lot of things that you have to look for with the jobs. Look at the jobs on the shelves. 1, we already said, can the kids do the jobs themselves? That was like, is this a kid-sufficient classroom? But 2, does the work on the shelves change? You may not be able to know that if you don't do like the 2 visit thing, visit 1 month, visit 2 months later, 3 months later is my ideal, because then you'll be able to see what has changed, what hasn't. Try and take a mental note of what's going on. See if there's a job that you remember, that you know what I'm saying? Because some people will absolutely just keep the same random shit on the shelves pretty much all year long. Kids will start getting bored. Kids don't even want it. Sometimes it's even really simple stuff. Everything looks really simple. Nothing looks like something maybe a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old could challenge themselves with. That's a huge red flag. What's my second one? So the work never changes. And that may be something you start to notice about a school you already put your kid into. You may start to realize like, oh, like nothing ever changes. Or, ask them, how often do you change the work on the shelves? Do you have a schedule for that? They're always going to say they do. But you'll be able to kind of glean from their answer if it really sounds like they really are doing it. I hope. They could be a season's liar, who knows. The work on the shelves could be dusty. This is a big red flag because that means that kids are not using it. It means that they are definitely busting out the daycare toys for your child the second you guys turn out of the room. Dust on the shelves means that they don't trust the kids to use the items because they haven't trained anybody to use the items, so they're afraid the kids are going to break shit and not use it correctly. So you have to really focus on that type of thing, the cleanliness level. And the cleanliness level is also huge because the Montessori method is a very clean, teaches your kids to try to clean up after themselves, teaches that everybody's cleaning, wiping down shelves. That's like, that's just basics. It's basics, right? So the jobs look like they've never been touched is another one. So this is different from their dusty, their dirty. This is, everything looks so pristine, so perfect, so put into place. Everything matches perfectly. It looks like a training room. That's what I'm saying. It looks like a room you would go in to get trained in. Everything matches the same certain way. And it looks like no one has ever been in this classroom. Some classrooms really are very put together, very aesthetically pleasing because a lot of Montessorians are sticklers. They want to match everything up. But there's a difference between a very lived-in space that's very clean and well put together and matchy-matchy and a space that looks like everything's for show and no one ever gets to touch it. It just looks like it's just, when was the last time a child in this room? There does need to be a little bit of breathing in the room, life. It looks like the children had something to do in here, have touched this stuff. It's set up for children. The other big one is the exact opposite. Are the jobs looking really sloppy? Are they being put away in a way that looks like they're being put away nicely? Does everything look like it makes sense on that little, like, you know what I'm saying? There's going to be a little tray with a little box and it's going to have little different items. It depends on what it is, but it's going to be aesthetically pleasing. It's going to be put away nicely. Even if every single job in that classroom is made out of paper, it will look nice. It will look put together. Each of the little pieces, laminated pieces, will be put in their little plastic baggie or little plastic cup. Each one will, it doesn't look sloppy. It doesn't look like it's peeling apart, falling apart, gonna just break apart in your kids' hands. That's not something you want because that means that these people are not putting in the effort. They're not replacing things that are broken. There's a good chance that a lot of things are just kind of falling into disrepair behind the scenes, but they don't want you to realize that. But you can easily look at some of the work on the shelves and come to that conclusion yourself. And yeah, so try and do a job yourself. Try and see if you have time. Try and see if you can pull something off the shelf and do it yourself. Just see if it's that confusing or if it's something a child could really do or if they're just putting things on the shelf to make you think it's Montessori. I also, let me see, what else did I say? Oh, and yeah, and feel free to ask what a job does if you don't know and see if the explanation seems like concise, seems clear, seems like something, don't do it to every damn job in the whole place, but go to the different things in the classroom that one thing or two things and ask what it's about. What does this teach? Can you show me really quickly how this works? And see if it's something that you think that a child could really participate in with guidance, or if this is just something that they've just shoved on the shelf for whatever, personal nefarious purpose that has nothing to do with your child's well-being or education. We also have the issue of, what did I write here? Oh, are they using the Montessori jobs? Because they can be putting a lot of fun jobs on the shelf, but if none of them has anything to do with Montessori, she has some really basic ones, right? She has like the pink cubes, the brown prisms, sandpaper letters, a world map. So these are not always things that you have to get, very expensive versions of. A lot of these are things you can make yourself or you can buy a cheaper version of it. These are things that absolutely your Montessori school should have invested in. And it should not just be the pink cubes. they should have, if they have 5-year-olds in that classroom, they need to have the stuff for math, for science, for geography, and so, I'm not saying that they have to go to like Neen House and get the big map and get all the little pieces for math from there and blah, blah, blah. But if they have like the cheap ones, they should have a way of storing it. If they have their own methods, they just use loose beads instead of having, everything strung together, and they have like their own way of doing it on pipe cleaners or something. You know what I'm saying? There are ways for them to make Montessori items, so they're not necessarily like the beautiful wooden glossy ones that you spend good money for at Neen House, but they are the same thing for all intents and purposes. Because remember, Maria was not trying to make an elitist whole thing where it's like only the best of the best and the this and the that, and you should be able to go and carve everything from wood and make everything from paper, and that could be your Montessori classroom. It can be as simple as it needs to be according to what you have, but it does need to have these things. It does need to address these things, or address what these things are addressing, should I say. My final point, my number 5, I really suggest that you observe their work time. Observe the transition from their work time to circle would be the best of the best. Some of them do circle first, so you may need to do the transition from circle to work, or see what they do from work to their next transition after that. Transitions are very important too, because sometimes they can get the classroom like down to a lull, but then in transitions it turns to chaos. I think it's really telling often. Sometimes transitions don't always go right. It's this 2 to 5-year-olds, it's not always going to go right, but generally transitions are a huge thing. If it's a smooth transition, if the kids are listening, they understand what it is, they understand what's next in the schedule, so it doesn't look like they just did a random work time just to impress a visitor or two, and the kids don't actually know what the heck's going on next because this isn't what they usually do. Or the work time itself should have like a healthy, it can be anywhere from pretty quiet to a healthy buzz. If everybody's really working and in tune with their work, you can tell when it's chaos versus when kids are really just doing what they're supposed to be doing, learning, getting involved and engrossed in what's going on around them. That's the best, when there's like that healthy buzz in a Montessori classroom, and it's loud, but it's good. It's that good sound. That's my favorite. But I do also enjoy those quieter times. So those are both, pretty accurate. But seeing that the kids are able to go choose things on the shelves, that they're choosing what they want for the most part. Some kids obviously will be guided because they're maybe older, they have something new that they want to introduce to them, or something that this child could be working on to get away from another child and help them with that part, the social part of what's going on. But yes, you should be looking at the teachers. How are the teachers interacting? Are the teachers getting down? Is there a teacher that ever got down and kneeled at the rug and worked with a child? Are teachers yelling? Are teachers getting really upset? That's never a good sign in a Montessori classroom, because it's like, what are you upset about? Everybody's acting grown in here. That's the best. It's awesome because the kids are doing their own thing, so you don't really have to be mad at anybody, because they know that it's all accessible to them to wash, I spilled the beans, let me go get the little broom and the hand broom and go sweep this up. It's really it helps the kids become self-sufficient in a way that helps the adults, right? That's one of the really awesome things about Montessori, is it's teaching your kids these skills that it's like, wow, this is something I wouldn't have expected of a child this small, but you can. That's what Maria Montessori taught us, and that's what the Montessori method really teaches in a lot of ways, is that you can start at a very early age and still expect some wonderful things. And then the Montessori method can absolutely go throughout your entire life, learning that hands-on learning and putting yourself into that situation. It's a very beautiful method. I'm always so impressed by her. But it does make me sad that people get scammed and people think that they're doing a really great thing. It always made me sad at the schools I worked at, because I did my absolute best, but at the same time I was working against a system a lot of the time, and it was not at all how I remembered from my mother's school, which was a very traditional Montessori school. I had a garden and everything, and it was just it was a very different environment. And so I was hoping with this video to give a little advice to people about, Montessori. And I hope that maybe this helps you to know what to look for in a different classroom so that you know what to expect and when to just kind of walk away and say goodbye and this isn't worth my time. You're a scammer. This is a ding-dong Montessori. All right, so thank you so much for watching. May your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads, and I'll see you next video.